In today's video, we will integrate a managed Postgres database to our Next.js application using server actions. And we will focus on integrating the database and how to add that to the application. And we won't be focusing on the stuff like building the UI or styling it. And that's actually why I have already created this kind of skeleton application for us to use as a starting point. So this application already has all the UI stuff ready. So it looks like this currently. And as you can see, there is no functionality yet. So that's up to us to do in this video. So I recommend you clone this application yourself and follow along as we progress in the video. And you can get this application from this URL. I'll leave it down in the description too. So you can just clone this repo and run yarn install and yarn dev. So you will then be in the same situation as I am right now. So just to give you a quick overview of this application right now, we have this page.tsx where we render the addTodo form component and to-do list component. And the to-do list component gets the to-dos as a prop, and we are using this getTodos server action to get the to-dos. And if we look at the getTodos, what it looks like, so it's in the lib actions file. So over here, we can see that we have getTodos, addTodo, delete, and toggleTOdo server actions ready here. But as you can see, they have no code in them yet. So these are something we will be working on in this video. And the addTodo form, if we open that up, so it's in the components addTodo form, it has some logic for adding a new to-do. So it has an input where you can type in the to-do and then an add button. And it uses the addTodo server action from the server actions we just viewed. So this one over here to add the to-do. So that's something we have to work on too. And then we have the to-do list component. It gets the to-dos as a prop. And basically all it does, it renders the to-dos over here. And a couple of more things. It has this handle toggle, which will toggle the to-do done or not done, and handle delete, which will delete the to-do. And these use the server actions also defined in our server actions file over here. So that's a super quick overview on the application's current state. So where do we get started now? Well, what we want to do is define an API to this db.ts file. So this file will handle all the database interaction, and we will export some function from here that we will then use in our server actions. But before we work on this database file, let's actually create our database and make sure that it's ready to receive connections from our application. I'm going to use UpCloud to host my Postgres database. It's super easy to set up, and we can just click our Postgres database on, and UpCloud will take care of all the infrastructure and setting up the database and that kind of stuff. So we don't have to worry about that. So if you don't already have an account, go up here for sign up and then fill in this information. And UpCloud was kind enough to sponsor this video. So I have a promo code for them that you will get $50 worth of credits when you sign up using that. And the promo code is Tuomo50. So use this promo code when you sign up for UpCloud and create your account. So I already have an account, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in, but you go ahead and sign up for the account and I'll see you inside. So once you have created your account, go to the databases on the left-hand side and then create new database. And over here, you can select the location. So you can select whichever you want. I'm going to select Finland and then scroll down a little bit. And over here, we want to select the Postgres database. And then the trial plan is okay over there. Then we want to also allow public connections. And then since we are creating an example application, we also want to allow access from all IPs. So if you run this application in production, you might want to restrict the access for just the specific IPs that, or the IP your server is at. But right now, just click the allow access from all IPs and then scroll down and we can add a hostname prefix. I'm going to say Tuomo, and then just create database like that. So now we have our database starting. So if we click over there, we can see that it's setting it up. And while that is putting up, we can start working on our database file. So I'll switch back to the VS Code. And here I have the db.ts file open. So let me add some code over here and let's go through it together then, like this. So the first two lines are imports. So we are importing stuff from this PG package that we still need to install. And then we are also importing server only, and we need to install this too. And what the server only does, it makes sure that this file cannot be imported from a client component, because this file will have some sensitive information in it, so we don't want to expose those to the client. So that's why we need to make sure that this file can only be used on the server. So let's go ahead and install those two packages right away. So that was the PG and server only packages. And then let's add the type file for the PG also, like this. All right. So next we are declaring some types and interfaces over here because we are using TypeScript. So we want to define the types for everything we are using. So we are defining this PG pool that we will use soon, and then also this interface for the environment variables. So we have the database host, database name, user, password, port, and then also the SSL certificate. So all this is some type definitions. And then also we have this database interface where we have a couple of functions. So first we have this query function that takes as a parameter text, which is a string, and then params, which is an array. Then we have a function getPool that returns a pool object, and an end function that will just return an empty promise. So these were the first things to add for our DB file, just to define the types for our database API. So next, let's actually add the code for the API. So I'm going to add it over here, and then let's go through it together. All right. So first we are defining this pool config object, which is basically a configuration object for our connection. So first we have a max, which sets the maximum number of clients that the pool can have. Then we have idle timeout millis, which means that it closes idle clients after 10 seconds. So this many milliseconds. Then we have connection timeout millis, which is also milliseconds. And this indicates after how many milliseconds an error will be thrown if the connection is not established. Then we have host, which is the database host, database, which is the database name, user, the database user, password for the user, then the port, and then this SSL, where we set that reject unauthorized to true. So that means that we need to always use SSL, and this CA is the SSL certificate that we will be using. And as you can see, we are getting all these values from the environment variables. So let's actually create those variables right now. So what I'm going to do is create a .env.local file like this. So over here, we can define our environment variables. And this is a safe way to store sensitive information like certificate or passwords, because it's environment specific. So I'm going to add all the variables that we need over here. And then let's see where to get the values for those, like this. So now we only need the values for them. And we can get all these values from UpCloud. So let's switch back to our database in UpCloud. And as we can see, it's running now. So that's great. So we can get the connection information for our database by clicking the connect up here. And we can even select which kind of client we are connecting. So there is no Next.js over here right now. So what we want to do is click the node.js, and it gives this connection information for us to our database. So what I'm going to do is actually copy this and go to VS Code, and then just create a new file and paste it in. And then I can copy the values from here. So the user is upAdmin. So I'm going to copy that and put it in the DB user. And the password is over here. So let's copy that. And I'm going to paste it in Then we have the host. So let's copy that and put it in the host. And then the port over there. And the database name. So let's copy that and put it over there. So only thing left is the certificate, and it's over here. So I'm gonna copy all this and then paste it into our env file like this. Okay, let's save it. So now we have our environment variables ready. So we can go back to the db.ts. So this was the pool config that we just went through. Then next, we have the getPool function, which basically returns the client pool for our database. So we don't have to go much deeper in this right now. And then we have the initDB function. And this function is used to initialize the database when we first run this application or if the database is not ready. So in the function, we are creating a to-do table if it doesn't exist already. And it will have 3 columns, ID, text, and is done boolean. And then we are using the pool to query the SQL. And if everything was successful, then we will log that table is ready. And if there is an error, we will throw that. So that's the initialize function. And over here, we are calling it. So that just makes sure that our database is ready for our application. And then is the actual database object. So it has the query method that takes the text and params as parameters. And then what it does is it gets the pool, client pool, and then queries the client pool with the provided text. So this text is the SQL that we want to execute, and the params is any parameters we have for that SQL statement. And then we have the get pool and end, which are used for getting the pool and then closing the whole database connection. So that's our database file. And the most important part here is the query function, because that is what we will be using. And all this is something that we just need to set up once, and we can then use the query function to interact with our database. So let's save this file. And now let's see if we can implement the first server action, the getTodos. So I'm gonna take this away and add some code over here, and let's go through it together like this. So what we are doing here is getting the result from the database, and we are querying the database. And as we can see, we haven't imported that DB yet. So let's do that right away. So this is the database API we just defined. So we can use it like this. So again, we are querying the database with the query method that we created, and we can pass the type for that query also. And then the first parameter was the SQL statement. So what we are wanting from the database is all the to-dos ordered by ID and in descending order. So this is plain SQL. And then we are awaiting it and then returning the result.rows. So all the to-dos. And if there is errors, we will log them and return an empty array. So that's pretty much all we have to do. So let's save this and fire up our dev server, and let's go to the browser and let's refresh the page and see what happens. So it looks like we are getting some errors, and I think we get them also over here. So it's saying that error relation to do does not exist. And this is actually because this was the first run and it ran the initDB function. So over here, it ran this and it created the table. So this is just what happens on the very first run. So if we go back to the browser and refresh the page again, we should get no errors. So let's refresh the page and there is no errors. So that's good. But there is also no to-dos. And of course, there is no to-dos because we haven't made any to-dos yet. So let's go back to the VS Code and to the actions, and let's fill in this addTodo so we can add some to-dos to our database. So I'm going to add the code over here, and let's go through it together like this. So again, we are using the db.query to query the database, and here is the SQL statement. So we are making a simple insert statement to our database, And now, since the user is providing the text value for the to-do, we want to pass it as a parameter over here. And the parameters can be marked like this. And then we can pass in the parameter in the array as a second parameter, like that. So that's how we are making the insert statement to our database. So let's save this and switch back to the browser and see if it works. So I'm gonna add a new to-do like this and click the plus button. Looks like something happened. Let's refresh the page. All right, so we can see our task is now in the to-do list. So it was successfully saved to the database. So let's add another one and click the add button. And it doesn't appear here yet, but if we refresh the page, it appears over here. So that's great. So now we can add tasks to our database, and also we can load the tasks from the database. But as you saw, if we add a task, it doesn't appear in the list right away. So let's fix that next. So let's go back to the VS Code. And what I'm going to do is actually use the revalidate path from Next.js. So I'm going to import it over here like this. So if you're not familiar, revalidate path from Next.js lets you revalidate any path in your Next.js application so that the component will load its data again and then pass the data down for its children. So in this case, we want to revalidate the index route. So after we have inserted our new to-do to the database, over here, we want to use the revalidate path, and we want to revalidate the root route like this, because that's the route that we are in. So let's do that, and let's click save. So now whenever the addTodo is called and the new to-do is inserted into the database, this revalidate path will tell Next.js that, hey, you need to revalidate that page, which is essentially this page file we have. And inside of our page file, we are loading the to-dos. So this component will load the data again and then pass the to-dos for the to-do list, which will then display them for the user. So let's test it out and see that it actually works. So right here, let's add another to-do. So now when I click, it should appear right away over here. And looks like it's working. So now the list is refreshed because we are calling this revalidate path for the index route after we have created the new to-do. So that's great. But then we still have a couple of functionalities left. So we have this checkbox for each task, and we want to mark the task done or not done when this checkbox is clicked. So basically toggle the is done for the task. So for that, we had the server action called toggleTOdo. So let me add the code for this and let's go through it together like this. So again, we are querying the database and giving the SQL as a parameter. And this time we are updating the to-do and setting the is done to the different value than the current value for the given ID. So again, we are using the parameters for the ID over here, and the ID is passed in this array. And once that's done, we are again revalidating the index route. So the list is refreshed, and let's see how it works. So I'm going to save this and switch back to the browser. So now when I click a task done over here, it should mark it done. Okay, looks like it's working. So I can mark this done. And if I want to set it not done, so let's click it again. Looks like it's working. So that's great. So the last thing we want to do is be able to delete these tasks. So when the trash bin is clicked, it should delete the task. So let's see how to add that. So let's go back to VS Code. So over here, we have the deleteTodo server action. So let me add the code for this and let's go through it together like this. So again, we are querying the database, and now we are saying in the SQL that delete the to-do with the given ID, and the ID is given as a parameter. And after that's done, we are again revalidating the index path, so the list is kept updated. So let's save this and switch back to the browser and see if it works. So let me delete the task 3. Looks like it was deleted, so that's great. And if we refresh the page, we can see that it's deleted. So we can delete the task 4 also, and it's deleted. And just to recap, these server actions, each one of these was already set up in the code that the application had. So in the to-do list, we have the handle delete and handle toggle, which called it toggleTOdo, which will set the task done or not done, and then deleteTodo, which will delete the to-do when the trash bin is clicked. And these, you can see from the code that these are used. We have the button for the delete, and as an on-click handler, we are passing in the handle delete function and passing in the to-do ID as parameter, which will then go to the deleteTodo server action, and over there we get the ID and give it as a parameter for the SQL over here. So that's basically how this works. And same thing goes for the handle toggle. So here's the on-click handler for the checking the to-do done. And we provide the to-do ID as a parameter for the handle toggle, and then pass it to the toggleTodo server action. And noteworthy here is that this is client component and these are server actions. So you can see how easy it is to use these server actions from client component. All we have to do is define them in the actions file, and then we can import them to the client component. So the other way would be to use route handlers, but that would be much more boilerplate code because we would have to make an API route or route handler for each of our actions. So for toggling the to-do or deleting or adding. So this is just much simpler and easier to understand, at least in my opinion. But just remember that it's important to add also for the actions file the use server. So this file is marked as server actions and it is run on the server. I hope you found this video at least somewhat helpful. And if you did, please leave a like and also comment down below if these kind of Postgres or database integration videos are helpful, because I have a couple of these planned, but I'm not sure if they are helpful and I don't want to make videos that aren't helpful for you guys. So let me know down in the comments. And I'll also add this finished application code to GitHub, to the same repo that we cloned earlier, and I will just create a new branch for it called final version or something like that. So you can just select the branch from here and then clone it. But thanks for watching, and don't forget to sign up for the UpCloud account using the promo code Tuomo50 to get $50 worth of credits to use. I'll see you in the next video.